Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's CURC Extended webinar. We are so excited to have everyone here for today's presentation, including an amazing group of presenters and partner organizations that have helped so much to put this together. The title of today's presentation is Food Waste Reduction, Recovery, and Composting on Your Campus. And it's going to be one of the most unique webinars we've put together, especially because we've adjusted so many things so far this year already. Before we get started, just some housekeeping for GoToWebinar. During the presentation, we will be busy sharing some information with you. So if you have issues with the system or your audio or anything else, please call GoToWebinar's customer support line, which is 800-263-6317. It's there for your reference in the future. During the presentation, we will be taking questions after each presenter. So when you have questions, please submit the questions by using the dashboard on the right side of your screen. Simply click the plus symbol where it says questions, and you can type us a note, and our moderators will do their best to get everyone's questions answered and hopefully answer some of these pressing questions that you might have. Also, if you have to cut out early or you miss some of the presentation for whatever reason, the recording for this will be available to stream within the next day or so from the CURC website, which you can see there at the bottom of the screen, www.curc3r.org. So it might not be up in the next couple hours, but by the time you check in on it tomorrow, it will definitely be up on our website, and you can go ahead and look for that. All right, this is the agenda for today. Right now, just going over this GoToWebinar housekeeping. My name is Eric Halverson. I'm the program coordinator for the College and University Recycling Coalition, which you will learn more about us in a second from our chair, who's going to take over the next part, doing a whole welcome and answer a bunch of the questions for today. We're going to hear from our partners for this presentation, the Center for Ecotechnology and the U.S. Composting Council. And they're going to share some information about what their organizations do and how they were able to help us today. And then we're going to move on to the middle of our presentation, which is going to be our case studies, which are all amazing, as you can see here. Topics from student-led food recovery, holistic food waste reduction and dining, composting in residence halls, and a tech service for food recovery called No Food Left Behind. Those are all going to be available for you to ask questions about, like we said before, and you'll hear more about those presenters in a second. Then we're going to have a short 10-minute break when we're going to move from this GoToWebinar system that you're on right now and into our Zoom breakout sessions, which is going to be something new for CURC to try, and we hope it works out well because our breakout sessions are one of our most popular features of our annual workshop. But unfortunately, in lieu of an in-person workshop, this year, we're going to do some breakout sessions via Zoom. You will be able to access those breakout sessions in a document in the handout section, which is on the right side of your screen on your dashboard. There's a little section called handouts, and you should be able to download a Word document with the links to each breakout session, whichever one you're interested in. When we get to that time at 3:10, you can go ahead and press those, press the link that you want to join, and you should be able to hop into an exciting, engaging conversation with other people about whatever topic you want to talk about. And now I'm going to welcome Jen Maxwell, the board chair for CURC.
Thank you so much, Eric. Welcome, everyone. As Eric said, my name is Jennifer Maxwell, and I am currently the CURC chair. And I am also the Sustainability Program Manager for Appalachian State University in North Carolina. I know that this is a really tough and challenging time right now for everyone, and so we really are grateful that you're here today and you get to join us for some engagement. We are saddened that we can't be together in person, but we have been coming up with some creative ways to try to engage our members and community, and so we are really grateful that you're here. So a little bit about CURC, just in case you're new to CURC. CURC is the College and University Recycling Coalition, and we're an organization that facilitates the exchange of technical knowledge and best practices for sustainable materials management. We are governed by a 12-person voluntary board, and Eric, as was speaking earlier, is our program coordinator, so he's our staff member. And our membership represents colleges and universities all over the nation. Next slide, please. So lots of ways for you to engage with us. One of our most popular is probably our Recycle listserv, and so you can subscribe to that, and it's a really great way to connect with colleges and universities all over the country and put out questions of different problems or that you might be having or challenges that you're facing, and you can kind of get some feedback from other schools. So a lot of valuable information with the listserv, so highly encouraged. We also have a website, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Next slide. Getting involved. So just wanted to mention our subcommittees of our board. So we have several different subcommittees, and members of CURC can also participate in these committees if you're interested. You do not have to be a CURC board member. So the first one I wanted to mention was our newest committee that we're ad hoc committee that we're developing, racial justice, equity, and inclusion. We're in the process of developing this in order to be more thoughtful and considerate of our efforts to become more inclusive in the future as a organization. And so we really would like input from members. We sent out a survey, some of you might have filled out, where you could kind of engage with us, and we've been trying to really reach out and get members involved that are interested in helping us with this initiative. So if you're interested in that, you can reach out to us at any time. Also, the other three committees that are standing committees are finance and sponsorships, board development, and marketing and programs. And so if you're really interested in any of those areas, we would love to have you join us. Next slide, please. So upcoming events, just wanted to share some things that we have coming up. So next week, as part of the ASHE conference, and some of you may know this is ordinarily our workshop is in conjunction with ASHE, and so we have done an on-demand educational session where we're going to be reviewing the results of a reopening survey that we did with the U.S. Composting Council and Elevate Packaging. So some of you saw that earlier in the year, and we're just going to be sharing some of our findings from that survey and some resources associated with that. So if you're going to attend the ASHE conference, be sure to look for that session. We are also partnering with a few other partners, Zero Waste Campus Council, NRC Campus Council, Bush Systems Consulting, and the U.S. Composting Council, to do another survey, kind of phase 2, which is on long-term impacts of COVID and what that might look like for a university. And so you can have the opportunity to be one of the first colleges or universities to fill this out. It's on the website currently, and there'll be some more information going out about it next week, but you can access it now if you'd like to go ahead and jump on that opportunity. And then our December webinar, as part of our webinar series, is Zero Waste Marketing Your Program, Strategies for Giveaways, and that's on December 17th at 2 p.m. And then we will be featuring a members meeting in January or February, kind of early 2021. So we'll be working on that, and that'll give us an opportunity to really share what we're working on, a year in review, and kind of celebrate CURC and all of our members. Next slide. Okay, so just wanted to say some thank you to our partners, ASHE, who's been a long-standing partner of ours for the workshop and the webinar series over the years, and so thank you to ASHE. And then Center for Eco-Technology is a nonprofit organization working with partners throughout the country to address climate change by transforming the way we live and work, and they're going to be sharing with you today, so thank you, Center for Eco-Technology and Corey Ann. And then U.S. Composting Council advances compost manufacturing, compost utilization, and organics recycling to benefit our members, society, and the environment. And so Linda is here from U.S. Composting Council. And so this time I'm going to turn it over to our partners. So Corianne Mansell with Center for Ecotechnology and Linda Norris-Walt from U.S. Composting Council. Welcome. Thank you so much for your partnership and your support. And we look forward to hearing from you. Thanks, everyone.
Hi, I'll just introduce each of our speakers before they go on. First off, we are going to hear from Linda Norris-Walt. She is the Advocacy and Communications Director of the U.S. Composting Council, a national trade organization that advocates for the commercial composting industry, trains and certifies both people and products in the best practices of compost production. She's been in the recycling industry for 28 years and has spent 10 years as the recycling manager for the Frederick County, Maryland. She is a University of Maryland graduate and an active member of the Frederick County League of Women Voters and a member of the Maryland DC Composting Council Steering Committee. So welcome, Linda, and we are excited to hear about the U.S. Composting Council and how it will benefit our members.
Thank you. I'm looking for my, oh, here we go. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, so I'm really excited to be here. This is the time of year when usually we would be coming to ASHE and I would be going to the CURC members meeting, and I know you guys have some cool networking events, so I'm really sad, as you mentioned, that we're not all together, but I'm glad to be participating in this session. So the U.S. Composting Council, we've been around since about 1990. And our mission, as you can see, focuses on compost manufacturing and compost use. And we believe that compost manufacturing and use are the key to healthy soils, clean air and water, stable climate, and a sustainable society. Our membership is made up of about 750 businesses and organizations, including about 25 campuses. You can see one of our members here, which is Washington and Lee University. And we, among all those people, we represent about 2,500 individuals. And our primary work that we do is to advocate for common sense compost regulations around the country and organics bans and things of that nature. We set standards for quality compost, and we now also certify professionals in composting. If you are running a compost facility, we have a certification program for that. And with our foundation, we do compost training, a lot of compost training and education. We do abide by, agree with, and live by the food recovery hierarchy, which many of you are engaged in levels above us, because there is usable food that is out there that needs to be fed to people and animals, and reducing food waste is a priority for all of us. So we fully embrace our place on the food recovery hierarchy. So how did we get involved with CURC and HE and the Post Landfill Action Network, our other partner, and in campus composting? Because we'd always had campus members in our group. But in the recent years, especially as food waste has become more of an issue in our society, we started seeing a lot more campus representatives coming to our compost operations training courses, and a lot more calls from campuses about issues with setting up facilities on campus and questions about composting. So we held a small focus group in 2017 to try to figure out what kind of training and resources to provide to campuses, since there were already many zero waste groups through these partner organizations. So our focus group wanted us to focus on training of actual compost operations, because other groups are focusing on how to roll out composting programs on campuses. So that's not our kind of our central wheelhouse. We're more how the compost facility works, or how you can connect with a compost facility. So we started the program in 2018 that we call the Our Campus Compost Program, with the little logo that you see with the little vegetables. This actually came from Our foundation has a program called International Compost Awareness Week, which many of you have probably participated in. It's every May, and hopefully your campus can do that if you never have. You can always go to compostfoundation.org to learn about that. But all of our benefits and resources that we put together fall under this program. One of the things that we did, we used to have campuses just joining under our bronze regular business membership. But now what we heard from our focus group was that many campuses not only have department members who want to get involved in the Composting Council, but many of you have students who are either researching in the area of composting, you know, or who may be in your zero waste program and maybe hoping to go on a path towards sustainability and composting. So now we have created our bronze level, which is 415, that it takes 2 staff members, and you can add 4 students to that level, which is unique in our memberships. The other thing that we did is created a student level, which we had never had before, and that level is just $30, which we do have quite a few students now, so apparently it is affordable for students. And NC State is one of our members. So I wanted to mention that coming up, like everybody else, we are going virtual for our conference, which we do every year, where we focus on all things compost operations. And there are quite a few presentations on collection and other policy issues regarding composting. So last year was the first year we created a student rate, so it's pretty new. But what we have created, as you can see, is an early bird. If you are a student member at that $30 rate, you can get into our virtual conference for just $96. And then the regular price, I think we're going up to regular price after this week, is $114. So if you want to check out the conference and see what we have planned, it's at compostconference.com. So another piece of training and education, we partnered with the Post Landfill Action Network and put together a campus composting manual. And this is on our website for members. We do have kind of a summary of it on the website for non-members. And in this manual, it goes through everything. The Post Landfill Action Network focused on things like student staff interaction, setting up programs, setting up collection sites, signage. And then we did the chapters primarily focusing on composting. So I have just a few little highlights here. So for example, our chapters focused on compost systems, which you see 4 different systems here, which this is like the meat and potatoes of what we do is work on these composting systems. We had some information in there on biology, operations issues like odor is covered in there, as well as compost use. For those of you who may be, using compost or trying to make an actual revenue center and selling compost. So those areas are covered in our part of the manual. And we also did a brief chapter, which, because it is our wheelhouse advocacy, we have found when we've gone to ASHE and PLAN conferences that students do want to advocate for composting on their campus and in their communities. So we put a little bit of information about how to do that. And there are some campuses that are actually moving into public-private partnerships with their town situation, where they may be operating a compost facility on site and they're doing some collection for their community. So there's some interest in that as well. So I just wanted to thank you all at CURC, as well as ASHE and all of our partners for always including us in your work that you're doing. We are always happy to support students, staff. We just love the work that campus composters do. So feel free to contact me if you need more information.
Thank you, Linda. I'm excited to continue to work with the U.S. Composting Council. I think hopefully a lot of our campuses are expanding their programs or starting their programs, and we'll find you a valuable resource. Next, I'd like to introduce Corey Ann Mansell. Corey Ann is the Strategic Services Representative at the Center for Ecotechnology. Corey supports CET's waste reduction programs by leading stakeholder engagement processes and providing on-site technical assistance to businesses and institutions. Through this work, Corey developed a thorough understanding of the marketplace conditions for wasted food. Corey also coordinated CET's partnership with the Harvard Food Law and Policy Clinic to develop a toolkit for states and cities considering organic waste bans, and the partnership with BioCycle to create the community toolkit for leaf and yard composting facilities to add food scraps, which is very important. So I'd like to welcome Corey in. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Hold on. Okay, we should be all set here. One moment. Oops. Okay. So thank you, CURC, for inviting me to speak today. I will be quickly reviewing our organization and touch upon some of our learnings from helping businesses and institutions reduce, recover, and separate their food waste. So, mentioned earlier, my name is Corey Mansell, and I'm the Strategic Services Representative at the Center for Ecotechnology. And CET is a nonprofit that helps people and businesses save energy and reduce waste. And we've been doing this for over 40 years, where we're helping businesses and institutions implement programs on the ground while also contributing and implementing effective public policy focused on these efforts. And we partner with a variety of entities, including the EPA, the USDA, the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, utility companies, and many more to conduct this work. We did start in Massachusetts, where we were instrumental in establishing some of the first composting programs in the state, but have since expanded to offer program design, technical assistance, and consulting services throughout the Northeast and the US. So our Wasted Food Solutions website is focused on helping these businesses, institutions, and governments reduce, recover, and divert their wasted food. And so our website, which is linked below, offers a hotline, state-specific resources, a toolbox of best practices, and also case studies that walk through some of these examples. And we meet with facilities virtually or on-site to help implement programs that are across the EPA food recovery hierarchy. Depending on the location and our partners, this assistance is also available at no cost. We're an organization that is solution neutral, so our goal is really to meet with you, to give you the tools that you need for sound, sustainable programs that are going to be sustainable in the long run, and looking on many fronts, whether that's the economic side, the social side, as well as the environmental side. And because of our role, we're able to hear common concerns and challenges that may come up and develop the corresponding resources for the variety of strategies. In Massachusetts, we administer Recycling Works in Massachusetts for free for businesses and institutions. And we administer this program under contract by the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection. And so here through Recycling Works, we offer a similar set of resources, including a hotline, best practices, and that technical assistance I mentioned earlier. So I will say technical assistance a few times, so I'll define what that actually means. It means, meeting with you, developing tailored recommendations for businesses and institutions that can include program design, customized signage, cost impact analysis, and identifying areas where there could be ongoing or ongoing communication and education. And so in the next few slides, I'll be walking through very quickly some of the key components to long-lasting programs. One is defining the roles and responsibilities within the program that you have. So if a member of your team, for instance, notices that there's some contamination issues or that the system's just not working, do they have someone to go to and address the issue at the forefront? Of course, it's understandable that a program is going to evolve, hopefully expand over time, but it's important to understand who they can go to and who they can communicate this with. And everyone's part in the food recovery or wasted food diversion program is important. And so everyone's role is going to help run the program more smoother. It increases buy-in and responsibility, as well as opening the door for feedback and improvements. Our source separation guidance document, which is available online, reviews these best practices for collection areas and kitchen separation, where containers may be placed and moved, that can help highlight where there is a need for a point of contact or a defined role. Second, checking in and communicating with your hauler and end site is going to be key. The materials that are accepted and are able to be processed may vary by hauler and end site. So for example, before you invest in compostable ware, really open that communication and converse with your hauler or compost site if you're able to, or anaerobic digestion site, animal feed, etc. Making sure that they know the compostable ware that you're going to be purchasing and if they can accept it. We also recommend reviewing our hauler contracting guidance document to see what modifications you may be able to make and what other services may be available to you as you potentially add or remove collections with your current hauler. The document includes information such as feedback for improper disposal, which is going to be key, negotiation, subcontracting, and more. Last but not least is the signage and training. There is a need for clear and consistent signage with the appropriate bins as well. This can significantly reduce possible contamination. And so working with Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, I learned the phrase twin the bin for recycling and trash containers. I like to think about it as more of the triple the bin, so trash, recycling, and your food scraps if appropriate. And having photos of exact photos of the materials that you're generating is definitely going to be helpful, as well as having them on the bins or as close as possible. We've also seen some schools utilize shadow boxes where they actually have a box with the items that are coming from their cafeteria or from their residential halls. Really helps drive the message home. However, with or without these large-scale changes, retraining is going to be key. So with new staff or new students, your systems are going to change, questions are going to come up. So having an orientation that includes this information, as well as that ongoing training and messaging, is going to support your program's overall success. And we also have an upcoming event. So this is the Fall WasteWise Forum in November. And here we'll be diving into best practices and strategies for source reduction, focusing in on the opportunity to reduce food waste at the forefront. Of course, every component and strategy across the EPA food recovery hierarchy is important. And so we're always able to meet with you where you are or where your interests lie, but this one is tailored to the reducing of food waste. And that is all I have for today. If there are questions, I'll be facilitating one of the breakout groups, but my contact information is also here. Thank you.
Thank you, Corey and Linda, both. We will be sure to share both of your contact information with our members and attendees after the webinar, as you both have incredibly valuable resources that they can utilize on their campuses to address food waste and composting. I realized I forgot to introduce myself. I am Leanna Hauser, the Waste Reduction and Recycling Manager for Johns Hopkins University and the co-chair for CURC. I want to also thank you all for joining us today for this unique alternative to our normal CURC annual workshop. And we hope that you will enjoy hearing from our incredibly talented and committed colleagues in the waste reduction and diversion world. So as you know, the theme for today's extended webinar is food waste reduction, recovery, and composting on your campus. As you may know, about 1/3 of all the food produced globally is wasted, consequently contributing to about 6% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. And if food waste were a country, it would be the 3rd largest emitter of greenhouse gas emissions behind China and the United States. Yet, one of the most striking and empowering things about this global challenge is there are a multitude of opportunities for us to reduce food waste, recover it to feed people, and divert it from our landfills and incinerators. So I'm excited and honored to welcome 4 food waste reduction champions in higher education to share their creativity, innovation, and dedication to addressing this big challenge. So just as a note, we'll save questions for each presenter till after the individual presentation. So feel free to write your questions in the chat box as they arise during their presentations, and we will try to get to as many of them as possible. So on to our first presenter. Our first presenter is Nishu Hosamane, and Nishu is a senior at the University of Maryland, College Park, where she is majoring in physiology and neurobiology and minoring in mathematics. That's a big load. She joined the Food Recovery Network chapter at University of Maryland as a recovery leader during her first semester on campus, and now serves as the president of College Park's chapter. We were happy to have her share her perspective and experience as a student leader fighting food waste on campus. Please welcome Nishu.
Hi everyone, I just want to confirm that you can see my screen fine.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Okay, so as Leanna kindly introduced me, my name is Nishu and I am the president of the College Park chapter of the Food Recovery Network. And today I'll be talking about how our club on campus focuses on reducing food waste and just like how we are organized and how we've been very successful over the past several years that we have existed. And so just want to have a little background and, put this in perspective and talk a little bit about food waste and why it is an important issue to be focusing on and why it's important for college students to focus on this as well. And so before we get into the statistics of it, just want to clarify, like, there is a difference between food loss and food waste. And so food loss refers to a decrease in the mass or nutritional value of food that's intended for human consumption. And this is largely due to systematic inefficiency in like food supply chains. And then there's food waste, which refers to the discarding of food otherwise appropriate for human consumption. And so today we're going to be focusing on food waste, obviously. And so just some, statistics. Americans waste approximately 80 billion pounds of food every year, and this equates to approximately $161 billion. And just kind of put that into a more, break that down a little bit more, that's approximately $1,600 per family. In produce alone. And so this corresponds to approximately 219 pounds of waste per person and approximately 30 to 40% of the US food supply. So obviously it's a very significant issue and something we need to focus on since it does affect so many people and have such widespread effects on both the environment and socially, economically. And so here's just another graphic to kind of put things in perspective. And, we said 80 billion pounds of food is thrown away each year, and that's approximately worth like equivalent to 1,000 Empire State Buildings. So again, it's a very, very big issue that we really need to focus on. And, groups such as the Food Recovery Network are essential for trying to eliminate food waste and reduce the environmental and social impact it's having. And so just a little bit about the environmental impact. When you're wasting food, it also wastes the water and energy that was required in order to produce that. So when you're throwing away an apple, you're not throwing just an apple away, you know, you're wasting the food as well as the water and the energy that was required to produce it. And so the total volume of water used to produce food that goes to waste is equivalent to 3 times the volume of Lake Geneva. That's just, you know, a way to kind of put it in perspective. And this is approximately 250 kilometers cubed. This also generates, you know, greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide, methane, and chlorofluorocarbons, and these all contribute to global warming. And then another issue is nitrogen pollution that's caused by decaying food in landfills. And decaying food produces nitrogen, which can cause algae blooms as well as dead zones. And then finally, food waste in America contributes to the same amount of greenhouse gas emissions as 37 million cars. So again, it just shows the impact that food waste has on our environment and how significant it is. And so just a little bit into the social impacts. More than 35 million Americans struggled with food insecurity in 2019, and this is predicted to rise to 54 million due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And so this kind of falls into the food insecurity aspect of like food waste, but nonetheless, it's still important. But food insecurity and hunger, it's definitely a racial inequity issue because people of color are disproportionately affected due to systemic racial discrimination in this country. And it's kind of like a perpetuating cycle where people of color are disproportionately affected and, you know, have lower wages and don't have the same access to education. And this all, you know, affects like in a cycle, and it has resulted in people of color being more food insecure. And so here are just a couple of maps. This is the overall food insecurity rate in 2018, and this is the predicted food insecurity rate. So you can see there's a significant increase in food insecurity. I'm sorry, ignore the title. I forgot to change that, my bad. But this is for 2020. And so now that we've kind of covered why food waste is important and how big of an impact it has on people's lives and the environment, I just want to talk about the Food Recovery Network and what we are doing to kind of help prevent food waste. And so just a little history about the organization. It was started by students at the University of Maryland in 2011, and it has now officially become a nonprofit organization. It became one in 2013 when the Sodexo Foundation provided funding, and now it is a national organization, widespread through 46 states, and we have 230 chapters. So we've definitely, you know, grown to be a very big organization and, you know, pretty well known as well. And so here's just a map of all the food recovery chapters across the country. So, you know, 230 chapters, very widespread, which is really, really great. And so just the impact of the Food Recovery Network, both nationally and locally. The national organization so all food recovery chapters combined have donated more than 3.9 million pounds of food through, you know, recoveries on college campuses, and that equates to approximately 6.8 million pounds of carbon dioxide that were prevented from reaching the atmosphere. And then more locally, our chapter, we have approximately 297,000 pounds of food recovered, and since fall 2017 we've been averaging around 20,000 pounds per semester, and all of our food is donated to the Christian Life Center in Riverdale, Maryland, and they focus on the redistribution efforts and have several different partners that they give the food to. And so just to talk a little bit about my roles in the Food Recovery Network and how long I've been with the organization. So this is an organization that is very near and dear to my heart. It was the first club I ever joined on campus. So my freshman year, 2017 to 2018, I served as a recovery leader at one of the diners. In 2018 to 2019, I served as the head recovery leader at 251 North Dining Hall. Last year, I served as the vice president, and I was also on the student and alumni advisory board for the national organization. And this year, that should be 2021, my bad again. I serve as the president, and I am also on the advisory board again this year. And so here's just a little diagram of how our chapter is organized. So we have our executive board, and that consists of the president, which is me. We have the vice president, Lily, the treasurer, Mutaz, head recovery leaders, and a volunteer coordinator. And so I just kind of made the schematic to kind of make it easier to understand. And, you know, it's pretty complicated, but this is what has worked for us. And so we have 3 dining halls on campus, North Dining Hall, South, and 251. And so we have head recovery leaders for each of these dining halls, and they're responsible for the recovery leaders. And so we have approximately 6 recovery leaders at North Dining Hall, 4 recovery leaders at South, and around 10 at 251. And so in addition to that, so everything in green is kind of our organization. And then we also have volunteers that help recover the food with us every single night at the different diners. And so these include Civicus, which is a service-oriented organization on campus, Alpha Phi Omega, which is a service-oriented fraternity, Muslim Student Association, the Sigma Alpha Epsilon, ROTC, Phi DE, Delta Epsilon Mu, AMSA, just a bunch of different student organizations on campus that decide to volunteer with us. And we also get individual volunteers as well, which the volunteer coordinator is responsible for coordinating. So, you know, a lot of engagement from our student body, which is really, really great. And we have a lot of support from our, you know, SGA. So that has definitely helped us be successful in our recoveries. And so recoveries have 2 main parts to it. The first part is the actual recovering of the food, where we package the food, and then there's the transportation of the food. And so we have 3 diners on campus, and 2 of them are open until midnight and 1 closes at 8:30. So we go to the diners at closing time, and that's where we package all the food. And the people responsible for packaging the food include the recovery leaders that are part of the FRN group, and then we have our volunteers from our volunteer groups. And so recovery leaders are responsible for logging the pounds, making sure everything goes okay, making sure the volunteers know what they're doing, and just kind of maintaining order during the recoveries. And we package all of our food using pans and lids that are disposable, and these are purchased with SGA funds. We've wanted to move to a more sustainable option of using reusable pans and lids, but unfortunately we realized that our partner organization was even if we were using reusable containers, they would then put them into disposable ones for their distribution efforts. So we were putting the burden of purchasing the pans and lids on them, which we didn't really want to be doing. So we are now using pans and lids using SGA funds. And then the second part is transporting the food. And so our partner is the Christian Life Center in Riverdale, Maryland, which is approximately a 15-minute drive from campus. And so in the past, up until 2018, we had school university-sponsored transportation. And so we would get these big buses that would come and drive us to the Christian Life Center every night. And it worked really, really great for us because the buses were large enough to fit all the food, and it was really great for us. But unfortunately, in 2018, due to budget cuts, the transportation services here were unable to provide us with transportation anymore. So we had to rely on volunteer drivers, and that actually didn't turn out to be as big of an issue as we expected it to be. We have a lot of engagement from our student body and a lot of interest in people wanting to drive and volunteer. So we really had volunteers every single night to drive as well. So that worked out really well for us. And so here are just some pictures depicting, you know, how a recovery goes. And these are all at the back of the diner with people packaging the food. You can see that they are wearing gloves and have their hair tied back. Like those are like the requirements that we have. And so all of these are both recovery leaders and volunteers at the different diners. And then here we have just like some pictures of the food packaged up. So in the top left corner, those were our reusable containers that we unfortunately had to stop using. The bottom middle picture is the freezer that we would sometimes put the food in if no one at the Christian Life Center was there to get the food from us. But you can see how big of an impact we're really having. You can see that there are, you know, 20, 30 pans being donated every night. And I remember when I was a recovery leader, it was approximately 200 pounds of food that we were recovering every night, which is a really significant amount. And a really great thing that we were doing. And so that's basically what the Food Recovery Network does. And I just wanted to end my presentation a little bit talking about what you all can do to limit your food waste. And if you can't volunteer, obviously, like our organization had to stop operations due to the pandemic. But I just wanted to leave you all with a couple of things that you can do with your daily lives just to limit your food waste. And so first, just understanding the difference between best if used by and used by. Just like most of food waste is caused by people not understanding the difference between these. So, you know, educating yourself, making sure you're not throwing away something that you could still be using is really important. Composting, donating to food pantries, using imperfect produce or freezing your food, and just to talk about imperfect produce real quick, the person who actually started the Food Recovery Network at Maryland, and that's become like the large organization that it is the CEO of Imperfect Produce. So, you know, doing something like that is also a really great way to prevent food waste. And that's it for me. If anyone needs to contact me, you're welcome to email me. If anyone's interested in starting a chapter, I'm more than happy to chat with you, kind of give you advice on how to go about that. But if anyone has any questions, I can answer them now.
Thank you so much, Nishu. We do have a couple of questions, and I just want to say that it was really important for CURC board to include students in this effort because we really value the work that you do on our campuses, and I think that it goes a long way in continuing the behavioral and cultural piece of sustainability once you all are have graduated. So a couple of questions. One is, does the food, so speaking of reducing food waste as the top of the food waste hierarchy, and then the next stage being donation, does FRN work with dining facilities to help reduce the quantity of prepared food, to help reduce food that needs to be recovered?
So we don't have any say on that, unfortunately. I think the dining halls have internal management that kind of figures that out, but even then we do see that most food is wasted because I think on college campuses, the dining services are more likely to make surplus food than not have enough. So we generally have seen that they haven't been decreasing the amount of food they're making, but unfortunately that isn't something that we can get involved with and kind of tell them to decrease.
Okay. Well, we'll be hearing from Kathy soon, UMass Amherst, and learn a little bit more about what dining operations are doing to sort of reduce that food waste from the start. But in terms of FRN, it doesn't sound like that's part of the scope of the work that you do. I did want to ask, from an office, an operations office or a sustainability office, we do work with students a lot, and students come up with fantastic and amazing programs and initiatives, but there is student turnover. Obviously, you're only there on campus for 4 years. Working with FRN at the chapter, do they help you with succession plans to make sure that once a program is started, it is carried through regardless of the leadership? And how does that work?
Yeah, so our individual chapter, we have a process of kind of transitioning from exec board to exec board, where each exec position kind of makes a document for the next person so they know exactly what to expect from their position, what they should be doing, when they should be doing it. I know for me becoming president, my document had, you need to contact these people during the summer, you need to let them know, introduce yourself, stuff like that. So on a local level, that's what our chapter does. But the national organization really cares about all the chapters and really wants to ensure that chapters are running smoothly and there is a smooth transition. So they actually have people schedule meetings with them as well. The president and the outgoing president and incoming president are required to schedule a meeting and kind of go through plans and make sure that there is a smooth transition between execs.
Fantastic. And really quickly, the last question before we move on to the next presenter is, any suggestions you have for increasing volunteer involvement with food waste programs?
So that's something we personally haven't had to deal with much because our organization just has an overwhelming support from our campus. But I would suggest kind of targeting groups that, like advertising to groups that may be interested, like service-focused groups. APO, for example, is one of our partners on like 2 nights a week at one of the diners, and they provide us with so many volunteers, so many drivers, and that partnership is really, really valuable to us because they really do provide us with a lot of help. But also focusing on, like pre-med oriented organizations as well, because, students are always looking for more volunteer opportunities. So just kind of advertising to the right people, I think, is a really great way to get more student engagement.
Thank you. There are so many other questions that are coming through, and I have my own questions, but I think, again, as long as everyone is comfortable, we will share contact information. You shared it in your slide with the attendees so they can follow up, because it's a very exciting program, and I know that a lot of people are interested in it. So we'll definitely be send them your way. So,
of course, if anyone needs any advice about starting a chapter, I'm more than willing to, have a meeting with you and kind of help you through that. So.
Thank you, Nishu.
Of course. Thank you.
So our next presenter is Kathy Wicks, as I mentioned. Kathy is with the University of Massachusetts. She is the Director of Sustainability for University of Massachusetts Dining Services Auxiliary Enterprises, where she oversees sustainability initiatives for all of auxiliary enterprises. She focuses on integrating sustainability in everyday decision-making for the division, aligning efforts with the campus-wide sustainability priorities, and building diverse partnerships. She has extensive experience in building multi-sector collaborations to work on policies, systems, and the environment for a variety of climate action and resilience initiatives. So take it away, Kathy.
Thank you, Leanne. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So thank you, Leanne, and thank you to CURC for inviting me for an opportunity to talk a little bit about our food waste reduction efforts. I'm going to give you an overview of our different strategies, everything from procurement, production, and practices. So I'll tell you first a little bit about UMass Amherst. We're located in Amherst, Massachusetts. We're a nationally ranked public research university in America. We have a student population during normal times of about 30,000 students. We have the largest collegiate dining program in America, and this is the 5th year that we've been awarded Best Campus Food by the Princeton Review. So during normal times, we're serving about 50,000 meals a day. Some more things about our dining program. We have 4 large dining commons, 30 plus retail locations, 2 fine dining restaurants, 2 food trucks, and we manage all of the concessions on campus. We have a diversified menu that is very focused on plant forward and world cuisine. So at any given time, we're serving about 15 different world cuisines a day. We serve about 8 million meals a year. We communicate quite a bit with our students and have about an 8.5 out of 10 customer satisfaction rate. We focus a great deal on our partnerships with the local and regional community in terms of our purchasing. So it's about almost 5.5 million spent in New England, and of that 2.5 million in Massachusetts. I'm going to talk a little bit in a few minutes about how that helps us reduce our food waste. So our current operations include a residential dining, which is an all-you-can-eat facility. We also have our food trucks. So that's one of the four of our residential dining commons is open. We have 2 food trucks kind of moving around campus in areas, outlying areas. We are getting ready to open our brand new Worcester Commons dining commons on Monday. We have about 60 to 70% of the current student population on campus, which is much reduced, but 60 to 70% of them are staying to dine in the dining commons. And then we have 30 to 40% who are taking food to go. We also are providing quarantine and isolation meals, and we're serving about 1,500 meals a day, which is much different from the 50,000 meals a day, but we are modifying and pivoting as we need to. And then this is a slide you've seen before already, but I just wanted to say that, you know, these are the principles that we use when it comes to food waste, and I'm going to focus on source reduction in the rest of the presentation. So we have multiple strategies in multiple settings. This includes procurement, production, and practices. For procurement, we have a number of things that go into it, including a flexible menu cycle. So we are very adaptable to what's available, that's very fresh, and that's actually even more the case during this time when we're serving fewer people. So we're working directly with our farm partners to know what they have available and building menus from that. And so we can look ahead a little bit and plan ahead, but we also have the flexibility to be adapting our menu based on what is fresh and available. And the picture under procurement is one of our annual farm visits to just connect with the farmers and talk ahead of the season about what we're interested in them growing and what they have available already planned. So this allows us to get the freshest ingredients kind of in real time, and that allows for it to have a longer shelf life and provide a nutrient-dense meal at the same time for our students. We also have a central production kitchen, which means that we have a lot of our food ingredients coming to a central spot and it being processed there, whether just that dicing or kind of the initial production piece, but it means that that we're able to control the inventory even more in one central location and then distribute it out into the various locations across campus. We also make the most out of every ingredient. So we're using as much of the ingredient, whether it's to use what might have been trim waste to make broth, or using them as stir fries. So an example that I like to use is that when we get cauliflower, we use the leaves of the cauliflower in stir fries, as well as some other dishes that we use. So and then we also have Food Pro software that we use that helps us closely monitor our inventory so that we can look and see both what's available through the central kitchen, but also what's available through the other dining commons, so that we're not stockpiling in one dining commons and then ordering another shipment in another dining common, so that the Food Pro software really helps us make the most out of the ingredients that we have. In the production end, we do a lot of in-time cooking, so we're not making as much of our dishes as in large tray portions and dividing them up. We're making them as per customer orders. We also do a lot of small portions so that the students are getting a lot of options, but they often come in much smaller portions, so that we produce much less and divide it up into smaller portions and distribute it that way. We also have smaller plates and a trayless system in the dining commons, so that students have to think a little bit more about what they want, but it also gives them an opportunity to try a little bit of something, and instead of getting a lot of something and then deciding that they don't prefer that, the taste of that. We also do a fair amount of repurposing food. So as often as possible, if there is something left over on the line, we will first consider what else it could go into in another dish before we decide that it will go into the compost. In terms of practices, we have a lot of staff and student engagement. So we have weekly staff briefings where we are talking with our frontline workers about what they're noticing, what ideas they have about how we can reduce the waste, as well as talking to them about how the food waste went the previous week and what adjustments that we're suggesting, both in terms of menu, in terms of production practices, and in terms of serving. So that could even be based on observation, that a serving size of a dish would even be reduced. And then we have a lot of feedback loops with staff and students, as I just described, but also through social media. And we have a text and tell. Sometimes we ask students very specific questions. It's a way for us to learn more about preferences, about what they're interested in, and what they're looking for. Like if that we notice that there are favorites, then we can help. That can help us monitor whether we should make more or less. We monitor student volume at different times of the day, days of the week, and points in the academic year. So we're also looking at trends over time so that we can plan ahead using those trends with the specific intention of reducing food waste. And then we also have a strong commitment to professional development, which is a picture that you're seeing here in the slide. And we have an annual chefs conference, and we also have annual ongoing staff training, which includes a focus on waste reduction. And I also do routine trainings and check-ins and monitoring with staff. And we've just begun instituting some waste audits. And once more students are back on campus, I have intentions of involving them in more of those audits that will be used as a point, an opportunity for dialoguing with staff and students about how to reduce our food waste even further. And then all of what we do is data driven. And so we have a lean path software that you see in this picture here that we weigh and define what is being wasted on a daily basis, and it includes, you know, what the dish is, what you know, the size of it. It gets weighed. It has a picture taken of it. The time is indicated. So this gives us a lot of rich data, and then provides us with a summary at the end of the week, or really at any time we want to go in and print out a report. And so this really helps us both plan in terms of volume for production, but it also helps us look at preferences, and again, it feeds into kind of different time of day and different times of the week, so that we can use this data in a lot of different ways. And then I talked a little bit about Food Pro. Again, that helps us monitor inventory. It helps us be able to design those menus in a very flexible, adaptable way. So for example, if there was something left over, we can go in and design a recipe that included that as an ingredient. Or we could get a call from a farmer that says, we've got an abundance of broccoli that we're going to harvest tomorrow. Can you use it? And then we can go in and create those recipes to have a broccoli celebration. We do a lot of student engagement. We have a student survey that we do with students every semester. This data that you see in the slide is taken from that survey, where we're looking over time about student preferences, and so that again helps us develop menus that are desirable, and it helps us track trends so that we can be on point in what we're developing. And then we also have a really close relationship with the Office of Waste Management that helps us be able to monitor what some of the any issues that come up, that we can have a conversation about and make adjustments as we need. And we really feel like this is an important partnership, and continue to think of new and innovative ways that we can enhance that. So you'll also see here all of our social media that we use, and we do a lot of not only surveying students, but we do a lot of our educational messaging, or if we have a lot of something on the line that we want to notify students about, and talk it up to see if there isn't interest, or that they're even in our dining app that we have. There's a way that students can indicate their favorite dishes, and then get notifications about where they are and when they are happening. So that is everything. Again, just our food waste reduction from the beginning really focuses on multiple strategies in multiple settings, and we're always trying to innovate based on the data that we're collecting in procurement, production, and practices. So thank you, everybody, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them now or to email me in the future.
Thank you, Kathy. That was, I mean, the program that you have is incredibly holistic, and I'm impressed with the, I mean, you really have your finger on the pulse. You are utilizing all kinds of data and engagements. I'm impressed with the work that you're doing, particularly with staff. I mean, that's where the rubber meets the road, is the kitchen staff. So one quick question before we move on. How many of these practices were established in response to the Mass DEP organics waste ban on commercial waste in October 2014? And did that legislation influence the budget for organics diversion?
That is a great question. That was before my time at UMass. So there were a lot of changes made right around that time on multiple fronts especially in terms of the transformation of our whole dining program to focus on sustainable, delicious, local sustainable and delicious food that included some of those transitions around trayless dining and the smaller plates, the world cuisine, the in-person or the in-time preparation. So I honestly can't answer whether it came in specific response, but I'm sure that it helped influence kind of that overhaul of the whole focus of the program.
Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it. And I'm sure people will be interested in following up with you on all the great work that you're doing there. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Leanne.
So we're going to turn now to Beth Mackenzie. Beth is the Sustainability Program Manager at the University of Iowa Office of Sustainability and the Environment. Beth has worked with the University of Iowa Office of Sustainability for 4 years, where she has collaborated with students and university stakeholders to expand and improve compost collection on campus, including in residence halls, the student union, academic buildings, and at events. Beyond campus, Beth serves as the Vice President of the Iowa Recycling Association, which is in the process of initiating a state chapter of the U.S. Composting Council, which Linda will be happy to hear. We are excited to have Beth speak about composting in residence halls. And this is a topic that after our initial phase 1 survey that we sent out for the return to campus, realized that it's critically important that we look for opportunities for students and other folks to compost outside of the dining areas, particularly in light of the overwhelming numbers of to-go packaging that we are seeing on campuses in response to COVID. So we're excited to hear, Beth, about how you have expanded your compost, particularly in residence halls, and how others might be able to do so as well.
Great, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen and hope that I'm doing everything correctly. Do I need to switch my display setting?
You got it this time, it's perfect.
Okay, it must have been auto set this time. All right, great. Okay, thank you. So my name is Beth Mackenzie and I work in the Office of Sustainability at the University of Iowa. I've been at Iowa for 4 years now and have been lucky to be involved in a number of waste reduction efforts. Today I'm going to give an overview of our residence hall composting program, which we kicked off in the fall of 2018. So before we get into the program details, I thought I'd give a quick look at our campus demographics. We are located in Iowa City, Iowa, and have around 33,000 students, with up to 6,950 of them living on campus in one of our 10 residence halls. That's in a typical year, not a year like this year. And what you're looking at here is a beautiful photo of our newest residence hall, and it's all lit up. And the silver building next to it on the right houses our Center for Global and Regional Environmental Research. So in this slide, we have examples of some food waste reduction policies our housing and dining staff have adopted over many years. We've seen the hierarchy in the previous presentations, so just going right along with that. Like other schools, we've gone trayless. We use small plates in our buffet-style dining facilities, and most recently, we started using meal forecasting software to reduce the overproduction of food, like we just heard about. And we also donate food to local food rescue organization and work with our student-run campus food pantry to redistribute meals donated by students. Of course, even after all of that, we still produce a fairly significant amount of food waste. Much of the food waste generated in our 3 main dining halls is collected for composting, both pre-consumer and post-consumer. But despite increasing our compost collection from 65,000 pounds in 2010, which was before my time, to 1.2 million pounds in 2019, our most recent campus waste audits, like the one these fine students are helping with, show that around 30% of our campus landfill waste is compostable. So although we've done a good job of collecting compostable materials in our dining halls, it does remain a major component of our campus waste stream. When we were reviewing the waste data back in 2017, it became very clear that if we wanted to make any progress in reducing the amount of organic waste that we were sending to the landfill, we would need to expand compost collection beyond the dining halls, like what you were just talking about, Leanna. So at about the same time that we were identifying organic waste as a major material to target, our housing staff was conducting their biannual student satisfaction survey, which included 2 sustainability questions. For the question, I would like to see more of the following sustainable practices in the residence halls, you can see that 14% of the students selected compost collection as one of their answers. So in addition to the data, our office received frequent requests from students asking for compost collection in the residence halls. They'd call us, email us, stop in our office. They wanted it in the residence halls. And we had 2 students in particular who were willing to lead a residence hall composting project. So once we knew there was both need and demand, we began identifying and meeting with stakeholders to see if we have the support to move forward. During our initial stakeholder meetings, we were able to start asking and answering some questions that would help us shape our program. So we have a lot of the questions listed here, and there's many more, but questions like where will the compost be collected is a major question, and some stakeholders might have different ideas about where that should take place. We had hoped to place compost bins on each floor of our residence halls, similar to the way our trash and recycling was set up. That way students would have easy access to the bins. However, we ended up not pursuing that collection location due to our housing's concerns with increasing workloads for custodial staff and RAs. Another major question to answer is where your food waste will be processed. We were lucky to have an established contract with a hauler who was already taking our dining waste to a third-party compost facility, but some schools may have their own internal hauling options, or maybe they operate their own compost facility. Of course, all of this comes with a cost, so it's important to know what all the costs are and who's committed to paying for what. That's really important. Once you get the big operational and financial questions answered, you can start getting into the nitty-gritty of program logistics, like how will the students obtain their bins? Will they have to sign up to get a bin, or will everyone get one? How will you promote the program? What happens at the end of the school year? How will you prevent contamination? These are just some of the questions that will come up as you walk through the planning process, and they'll likely help you identify each stakeholder's concerns, what resources they have, and their general roles in the program. So for us, students were most concerned about the convenience and accessibility of the program. Housing staff were most concerned about adding to the workload of their custodial staff, as well as pest and odor problems that could arise if students didn't empty their bins enough. Housing was also concerned about messy or smelly bins causing disputes between roommates. And because of space constraints, they were unable to offer any storage for the program supplies. Dining staff were concerned about the cost of disposal and students contaminating their compost carts. Our office was most concerned about costs, efficiency, contamination, and the long-term sustainability of the program. Our external stakeholders were mostly concerned about contamination. So during our stakeholder meetings, we also learned that the students involved in the project were willing to request green initiatives funding from the UI student government to help pay for the program startup costs, which they did apply for that funding and they received it, and we were able to use that funding for the startup costs. Housing was able to dedicate some front desk and RA staff time to the program, as well as help with marketing. And dining was committed to letting our students use their existing compost carts as drop-off sites. And because dining was willing to share their existing compost service, we were able to keep the program's operational costs down. But this also limited us to having only 3 drop-off locations for all 10 of our residence halls, rather than 1 drop-off location in each residence hall. So our office offered to dedicate staff and intern time to the program management. So as the program began to come together, we were able to define stakeholder roles. You can see here, students who, wait, did that slide go? Sorry. Okay. It didn't look like the slide I thought it was. So students who enrolled in the program would be responsible for maintaining sanitary conditions in their room, preventing contamination, and taking their materials to one of the drop-off sites. Housing would manage the bin distribution and coordinate roommate agreements. They would also assist with marketing. Dining would allow the students to use their existing compost bins as drop-off sites, and they would pay the vendor to haul the food waste to the compost facility. And they would also run all of the compost bins through their dishwasher at the end of the school year. Our office would manage the program website, the enrollment database, participant communications, program supplies, and the bin collection at the end of the school year. So after all the planning, here's what our program looks like. So kind of walking you through each season, summer, fall, spring, and back to summer. In the summer, we get everything prepped for the fall launch. We create or update all of the program collateral materials. We check the drop-off sites to make sure they're ready for students to use. We prepare our compost starter kits, which you can see a photo of one of those starter kits here. The starter kit consists of a compost bin, a compostable bin liner, and a couple of informational flyers. We deliver the starter kits and other supplies to the front desks of the residence halls, and then we prepare the marketing materials to promote the program. During the week of move-in in the fall, we launch the program and begin promoting it. Although we did postpone our launch this year due to COVID, so we just recently launched the beginning of October. Students who want to participate, they just fill out an online enrollment form. Then they get an email with directions about how to obtain their starter kit at the front desk of one of the residence halls. So before giving the students a compost bin, the front desk staff record the student's name, their confirmation number that they receive in their email, and the bin number, and they put all of that in a program binder that's kept at the front desk. The records are then used to track who returns their bin at the end of the year. In our first year, we didn't have bin numbers, and we had some students leave their bins at the drop-off sites or return their bin to our office outside of regular office hours. So we weren't able to identify who had returned the bins. So the next year, we started writing numbers on the bins with a permanent marker and tracking who had which bin. To alleviate housing's concerns about roommate disputes, all participants and their roommates have to fill out a roommate agreement form. And this, they can do this during their RA meeting that they typically have for a roommate agreement meeting, which usually takes place sometime between week 3 and week 6 of the fall semester, or we also have an online form that they can fill out. Once students have their bins, they basically collect the food waste in their rooms. We do recommend that they keep the bin in their refrigerator if they have one to reduce pest and odors, but it's not required. Once their bin's full, students take their waste to one of the drop-off sites, which are located at the docks of the residence halls with dining facilities. And once they empty their bin, they can go to the front desk and get a new liner for their bin. And then they just repeat until they either decide they don't want to participate anymore or until the end of the school year. And then in the meantime, for all the people who are signed up, we send them a monthly newsletter with information about what they can and can't compost, troubleshooting tips, waste reduction tips, and reminders about emptying their bins before fall, winter, and spring breaks. At the end of the school year, students are sent an email instructing them to clean their bins and return them to us during their hall's microchill collection event. For those of you who aren't familiar, a microchill is a microwave and refrigerator combination that students can rent from a third-party vendor for the school year. So the week before finals, students who rent a microchill are required to return it to the vendor during one of 2 collection events. So we set up a table during those 2 collection events and collect compost bins. When the students return their bins, we make sure it's empty and clean and then mark it as returned. At the end of the event, we roll all of the bins to the nearest dining hall, and dining runs them through their dishwasher. Once they're clean, we take them to a storage facility for the summer. We do have fines for failing to return your bin or for returning a dirty bin, as you can see here, though we have not assessed any fines so far. The first year, we didn't really feel comfortable with the fines because of the issue I mentioned with not having numbers on the bins. And then last year, we cut the program short due to COVID, and students moved out without receiving any instruction on what to do with their bins. So we didn't feel it was fair to assess fines. But if we ever do fine students, they will be handled by housing, because housing already has a process for charging students for other things like missing or broken furniture. So over the summer, we review the program and make adjustments as needed. The bin numbering was one adjustment we made after the first year. The university also switched compost haulers after we had launched, and so we had to update all of our informational materials and website with new photos of the drop-off bins. And we've made some other small tweaks along the way, but overall it's pretty much the same as it was when we launched in 2018. Since we haven't made significant changes, the annual costs have remained pretty consistent so far. There are some expenses that we haven't been able to calculate, like the cost of disposal, because our stuff's mixed in with dinings, and staff time. But for the numbers that we do have, we estimate that the program costs a little over $13 per room per year. And you can see how that breaks down in the graph, where compost bins are the greatest expense, then the liners. We estimate the liner cost by assuming each participant is using 1 bag per week for the entire fall and spring semester. And then stickers and educational materials are minimal costs. Of course, if the bins are returned in good condition, we can reuse them the following year, which brings down the cost after the first year. So we've had around 100 students enroll each year. However, we don't know how many of their roommates are also using the program, but we assume at least some of them do. And as proud as we are of this program, we do have room to grow and improve. Probably the biggest item on our wish list is to expand the number of drop-off locations so that there's 1 drop-off spot at each of the 10 residence halls. Even though the 3 drop-off sites we currently have are in close proximity to all of the other residence halls, with the exception of 1, it's still not very convenient for students to have to take their food waste to another building. Fortunately, our new compost hauler has a different pricing structure than our previous one, so it may make having drop-off sites at each residence hall more affordable. And so this is something we want to explore in the coming year. We also don't have data on how much food waste the program diverts because we share the bins with dining, as I mentioned before, so it'd be great if we could find a way to get the weight data. The last big change that we're looking at is shifting more of the program management to housing and dining. Since the program was created, our office, the Office of Sustainability, has undergone some major organizational changes, and our priorities have shifted a bit to expanding sustainability curriculum and research. Those are our top priorities. And so even though our priorities have changed, our staff has stayed the same. So we really just don't have the staffing needed to continue working on these, managing these physical campus programs while also expanding into research and curriculum. So we've been slowly shifting responsibility for some of our programs to the departments that either benefit from them the most or who are most willing to carry on the torch. So that's all I've got. Thank you to CURC for inviting me today, and I'm happy to take questions. And if anybody wants to email me later, please feel free to do so.
Wow, Beth, you know, I think you outlined the number, the variety of stakeholders and concerns and perspectives. And I guess my question is, did you have a magic wand to establish stakeholder harmony? How you impressive how you were able to address all of those concerns that the stakeholders raised, which I think we all can relate to. And knowing that you have generally very to little authority over anyone.
Very true, very true.
One question is, assuming that this is running during the pandemic, how did you deal with contamination issues throughout the year, and particularly any overflowing issues during the pandemic?
So the program is running. We launched it in, I think, like October 4th, the first Monday of October. So this year, since we started late, we're still kind of getting things off the ground. And we have not had, so far that I know of, and it's only been a couple weeks, issues with contamination or overflow, but our dining halls are using disposable to-go-ware. Much of it is compostable, so we expect to see obviously greater volume of materials than in typical years, because in other years students have to eat in the dining halls. So we haven't seen that yet, but we're going to be keeping an eye on those bins, just doing some regular monitoring of the bins. One of the things that I did do before we launched this year is I reached out to our waste hauler and said, hey, just FYI, we're launching this program, and, you know, let your drivers know that they might see some weird stuff in there, but, you know, most of what we're providing for to-go-ware should be compostable. So please make sure that if you see any issues, let us know. So between the hauler, and they're definitely quick to let us know if they're not going to pick up the container because of contamination. So between the hauler letting us know about contamination issues and then our spot checking, that's sort of how we handle the contamination. If we do see issues, especially if it's a certain item that we're seeing, we can use that that newsletter that I talked about to send out communications, and even send out special communications beyond the newsletter if we're really seeing problems.
Wow, I'm just, again, impressed with how much you thought of and how you're addressing all of these issues that are arising, particularly in the pandemic. There are so many more questions in from our attendees, so I think your inbox might get a little flooded. I'll be asking for where you found that magic wand.
I got it. It's a secret. I can't tell. No, actually, we just had a lot of really great partners that were willing to work together. So, yeah.
That's awesome. I love our partners too. I'm not saying anything bad about Hopkins, but it's difficult. So
it is.
Thank you so much, Beth. So now we're gonna turn to our final presentation to round out the discussion about innovative food waste reduction and recovery on campus. So I'd like to welcome Erin Meyer. She is the Sustainable Food Programs Coordinator at the University of California, Merced. She coordinates several food recovery and sustainable food programs, including the Bobcat Eats Food Waste Awareness and Prevention Program, the Pop-Up People's Pantry, the People's Fridge, Food Connect, and No Food Left Behind, a text service for food recovery, which we will hear about today. I'm really excited to hear about this. At Hopkins, we initiated a food waste text alert, and Erin reached out to us, and I am happy for her and sad for me to say that her program has grown leaps and bounds beyond ours. So I'm really excited to hear from Erin. So please welcome Erin.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me, Leanne, and everyone else at CURC. So let me share my screen with you. All right, so I'm here to talk to you about No Food Left Behind. Thank you for the awesome introduction that perfectly describes it. It's a text service to help reduce food waste on campus. So just a brief agenda. I'm going to give you a little history about the Bobcat Eats Food Waste Awareness and Prevention Program and how that led to No Food Left Behind. I'll tell you about our goals and strategies, some partnerships, communication, and planning, how we refined the program. I'll give you like a status update pre-COVID and then post-COVID, because that certainly changed things. And then I'll just talk about the future. So the Bobcat Eats Food Waste Awareness and Prevention Program started back in May of 2018. It is a partnership between the Merced County Food Bank and UCMerced to help the food bank initially reduce the amount of food waste happening there. Because unfortunately, even though they're a food bank and they're trying to give food to those in need, they still end up with a food waste issue sometimes. And so my work there was to set up distribution sites throughout the county, like little mini food pantries or whatever it might be that could help distribute out some of that surplus. And the program then quickly evolved into a food rescue program when someone contacted me, a coworker, saying they noticed that our cafe was throwing away a lot of food at the end of the night. And so we ended up just rescuing that food, and now that's kind of where that stands today. Just rescuing food and so on from various farmers markets, flea markets, cafes, grocery stores, things like that. And then as a part of this program also, over the summer in July of 2019, maybe June 2019, I was asked by our Director of Sustainability what I want to do next, or like what problems are we facing from a food waste standpoint. And I'm sure many of you know this, but anytime you often go to an event, there is leftover food. And there's a variety of reasons for that, whether it's people not showing up to get the food, or the event planner intentionally over ordering because they want to make sure everyone gets food. If they run out of food, it's a big problem. So I just had this issue with the amount of surplus food going to waste at all of these events, and propose a solution of some sort of app or text service to fight that. And I was at a conference, the CHESIT conference, California Higher Education Sustainability Conference, and spoke with someone at CSU Monterey Bay who uses a similar text service, and she raved about it. So we ended up implementing something similar. So in July of 2019, we started working on this program, and we had some planner and stakeholder meetings and engagement with a variety of folks from the Environmental Health and Safety Department. We worked with RISC. We worked with our catering center and so on. We also started working on communications plans to help on both ends, like both having event planners signing up for this service and to get students and staff and faculty like onboarded. So there's kind of a dual communication strategy and plan. And then in August of 2019, when school started, we officially launched the program. We hired on a student success intern for data collection and for marketing. And so she would go to some of these events, collect data regarding how much food was collected and how many students were there, and she did a lot more. And then we also had a logo design contest. So we had some students submit some awesome logos, and we settled on the one at the bottom left, which is very cute. We loved it a lot. And so that was a good way to engage folks as well. Then between October 2019 and March 2020, we were working on additional collaborations to help get more events on board. So initially this program started out only working with internal catering. So when you're ordering food for an event, you have the option to order internally through Lakeside Catering, or you can go with an external vendor, like one of our cafes just in the area of Merced. And so we were able to work initially with like the internal ones, but working with the external stakeholders is a whole other process. So we were in the midst of trying to work on those collaborations, but that didn't really work out once COVID hit. So once COVID hit in March of 2020 or so, we just placed on hold the entire tech service because there were no events, and so there's no food waste. So what would happen with this tech service is that we would have folks register their event on the catering ordering site, so they would mark it as no food left behind. They would say, hey, we've got this amount of food, it's in this location, and this is the type of food and everything. And so then we would send out a text message, usually the day before, to anyone that's using this text service, whether it's students, staff, or faculty. And the text would say where the event is, what time the event is, and they only had a 15-minute increment to go collect this food, just due to EH&S purposes, as well as the fact that catering didn't want to linger around for a full half hour while people were getting leftovers. And so it would have that information, as well as a little bit about like what kind of food it is, and like sometimes if it was vegan or gluten-free and things like that. And so everything was going really well, and then, you know, no events because COVID, and so therefore no need necessarily to send out text messages. So we put it on pause, and then we had our student success intern present her presentation at this virtual symposium, and later on in April, we were awarded a $5,000 grant from our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Office, which we wrote for prior to COVID. So we were given all of this money, and we had this tech service just kind of sitting around. So we were wondering what to do with it. And I decided we could utilize the tech service to announce other things happening in the county regarding food security, food waste, really anything sustainable foods. So we kind of pivoted and we started sending text messages out about like free food distributions, information about CalFresh, how to sign up. We've got a on-site pantry for UCMerced. It's called the Bobcat Pantry, and that's open to students and staff. And so we would occasionally send out text messages about that, information about local farmers markets and flea markets and so on. And in October of 2020, we officially launched our survey. So we are doing a survey currently to determine if our program is working well. And so we are in the midst of data collection on that piece. So overall, the goal is to obviously reduce food waste at catered events to help meet our zero waste commitment. The university has a variety of commitments regarding like carbon neutrality and water and everything, and one of them is zero waste, and of course food waste falls into that. We also want to reduce food insecurity amongst students, staff, and faculty. We have a really high food insecurity rate at UCMerced, around 67%, and that's for undergrads, so it's quite staggering. So a big role of this is to help get food to those in need. So, and then we specifically aim to reduce food waste by 1,000 pounds by the end of spring of 2020. And we wanted to enroll up to 1,200 or so on the tech service by the end of the spring semester. Those goals were not accomplished just due to COVID and everything, but we were on a trajectory to accomplish those goals and actually surpass them. So like I said, the strategy, it's a free text message service where people just text the word food to 85523 to sign up, and it connects them to events that might have food left over. And we also encourage folks to bring food containers as a part of this to reduce waste as well. And like I said, event planners register their events on what we call cater tracks. You might be familiar with that, the online ordering system for Lakeside Catering. So we have a variety of partnerships from the Office of Sustainability, kind of where this originates and is part of my work. I'm in that office. And then EH&S was really important in creating this program. Lakeside Catering. We also are partnering with Students First Center because they had a tech service already lined up. And so we kind of just piggybacked off of their service and are utilizing that as well. And it has been more of a cost saving method. And the Community Engagement Center, Bobcat Buy. Bobcat Buy is the one that was going to help with the external vendor partnership. The Office of Student Life, because we were also hoping to get some of the events that like clubs and orgs throw on board with this program, because you know the clubs and orgs, sororities, fraternities, they would have all these events and a ton of pizza left over, and they wouldn't know what to do with it. So we were trying to work with the Office of Student Life to get that on board as well. And then with COVID, that is also on pause. And of course, we're working closely with the Basic Needs Security Office to help address food insecurity piece of basic needs. In terms of communication, social media has been a big help. We have a Instagram and a Facebook, and we encouraged folks to sign up for both because text messages were getting slightly expensive. So we decided for some of like the recurring events that would happen, like a seminar that happens every Wednesday, we would only post those on our social media. And so that was a very helpful tool for us and still is. We have something called Happenings, which is a newsletter at the university. We had a little article come out in the University Lake newspaper. And something that was very helpful and still is for really all of my programs is word of mouth. So people just telling each other, telling their friends, to sign up was very helpful, especially having my interns do that. And we were able to table at you know, certain events and just during the day on campus prior to COVID. That's harder to do now, but tabling and telling students about it word of mouth was very, very effective. And it's really important to refine the programs and get information, feedback to better the program, of course. So we gathered a lot of feedback, one of which we asked students if they preferred text messages 24 hours before, or like before the event, or maybe the morning of, and we kind of played around with it and then asked some questions. And it seemed like folks preferred it 24 hours in advance. So that they could plan and bring their Tupperware, and so we stuck with that. We also developed out some community guidelines because we were getting feedback actually from like the catering department saying that, hey, these students are using our china and it's slowing us down, and sometimes they're taking our forks and things like that. So we developed out some community guidelines about just best practices and being respectful and so on. We also learned that we really need to tailor our communication and marketing because sometimes event planners would mark their event as No Food Left Behind and they wouldn't really know what they were getting into because it's just like a little drop-down box on cater tracks, and you know they might be like running through it and just hit yes. And so people would then, like students would come to their event to collect food and say, hey, we're here for free food. And the event planner would just look at them in a very confused way, and then I would get angry emails. And so in order to resolve that, more specific and targeted communication can help. And then maybe, you know, having a little blurb on cater tracks about what exactly this program is would also be helpful. So the status prior to COVID, we saved at least 850 pounds. Though that number is far from accurate. That's the number that we were able to actually weigh, but we only were able to attend half of the events just due to a lack of staffing. So it was probably more like double that, I hope. There were initially 1,177 folks signed up prior to COVID, and we had 125 events that occurred, and then another 20 were scheduled, and they were just like coming in, the invoices were coming in by the day, and it was going very well. And the program is very affordable. All we needed to buy was compostable containers, and that was optional since we're encouraging folks to bring their own, though we do notice that they're students and they not always did, or they didn't always do that. And so the biggest cost is the monthly cost for the tech service, which was the reason for writing for this grant through our diversity office. And then these are just some nice little quotes. I won't read all of them, but it's been so rewarding. We've seen a lot of students rave about the program and say how much it's helped them. So we really like this program. Go ahead. Sorry, that was a video. So the current status with COVID, right now we have about 1,105 folks signed up. We did encourage anyone to opt out if they wanted, because a lot of folks moved out of Merced County, so these resources are not helpful to them anymore. So we said, feel free to text back the word stop if you're out of the area, and we did have that drop because of that, I think. We are averaging about 4 texts per week right now, and we're looking at these surveys and getting really good feedback. It's still in the middle of the survey, so we can't really announce the results exactly, but things are going well. So for the future of No Food Left Behind and just Bobcat Eats in general, so we're going to continue to send out food-related resource text messages, and then hopefully when we can get back to events and all of that, restart with event alerts like immediately. And then we want to continue to scale with like working on those partnerships still. We are currently also working with the Food Rescue Alliance and the Food Rescue Robot as a part of the Bobcat Eats program. And I've also launched 2 new programs kind of under the same hat of Bobcat Eats, which is the Pop-Up People's Pantry, which is a free food distribution in my area every Saturday. And then we also started a People's Fridge, and this is something we text out a lot about. It's a community fridge at the same location where we have the pantry, but basically it's a free produce fridge where people can take food and leave food. And that opened end of September and is going very well. So overall, this is a quick recipe for success. So identify your food waste problem, whether it's event food waste or, event or dining food waste, or whatever it is, and then propose some sort of solution, whether that's a text service or what have you. And every school, every business, it'll probably look different. Maybe a app would be best for some folks. We didn't go that direction because we asked people and they wanted text messages. Or maybe there's like a Facebook group that would be better utilized for this kind of purpose. So tailor your solution to your institution, and then build a program, including finding ways to track data. Data is very important just from a grant standpoint, but also to determine if your program is efficacious. So building out that method from the beginning is really helpful. Developing out a strategic communication plan on every end of the spectrum, whether it's like the students using these services, student, staff, faculty rather, or it's the event piece, and then try it, pilot the solution. If it doesn't work, you could adjust, pivot, or just stop. And luckily for us, things were going well and still really are, and so then we can scale if possible. So just a quick thank you. We really couldn't do this without the food donors and the partners like catering, HNS, some of the offices we worked with, and the students, staff, and faculty that utilize these services to help us reduce food waste and meet our goals of the zero waste commitment. The volunteers, we had a lot of volunteers signing up to help. Our students, we have student staff as help for this as well, and the student success intern. And I also want to give a thank you to everyone listening, and to CURC and Leanne and Eric and everyone else for having me. And I am ready for any questions one might have, and there is my email address too if anyone has other questions.
Thank you so much, Erin. I'm really impressed with how quickly you guys went from the idea to the implementation of your program. And in just the short minute or so that we have before we wrap up, a lot of questions I know we received at Hopkins, or they're coming through the chat box, are the liability questions. So can you speak to any concerns or how you addressed it, how you got approvals from your legal department, your health, safety, and environment department in terms of the liability of the university for any leftover food that people might eat and get sick from.
Valid, very important question. Thanks for asking. That's one of the ones that I get the most. I should have addressed that in the beginning. But we worked very closely with EH&S, and they told us they just need to put a disclaimer, we put a disclaimer on our flyers saying, you are consuming these foods at your own risk. UCMerced is not liable. And there were a couple of other like disclaimers. And so we had that on our social media. It's also on the opt-in, or like when you text the word food, you get something back saying, here's a link to our website, and the website has that disclaimer on it as well. So yeah, working with EH&S to get a blurb about it was helpful. And then also risk was okay with that. We cleared it through risk and everything. And there were no issues. That was actually, I thought was going to be the hardest part because we've got a very strict EH&S, but it was quite simple because
cool.
They recommend like food waste and food security. So like everyone's fighting for us, right? And fighting for the students. So I think if your institutions are the same, and I hope they are, it might be easier than you think.
I would agree with that. When we launched our free food alert, we got tons of questions from everybody asking that exact same question, and I felt bad telling them that it was kind of easy. I'll just add that for our free food alert, we did add into our training for our event planners that we use the SaveSurf or ServeSafe, I can't remember the name, guidelines for hot and cold food. So if the food has been sitting not at temp, cold food for more than 6 hours, and hot food for more than 4 hours, then we tell them not to post the event and just get rid of the food, compost it or whatever. But so if that helps anybody, that's what we used and they were fine with that. So thank you again so much, Erin. Thank you to all of our presenters and partners. So that wraps up the case studies portion of our webinar. You've all shared such insightful and innovative and really importantly, real world examples of how the theoretical food waste hierarchy can actually be implemented on college and university campuses. So I hope our attendees now feel inspired and equipped to consider one or more of the initiatives that were shared today. So quickly, before we wrap up, I just want to remind everyone, Eric, if you want to switch the slide to our breakouts. So just as mentioned, one of their favorite activities at the CURC in-person workshops are the breakout sessions. So we want to continue with that tradition. We're going to switch to a Zoom sessions after this. So we're going to take a quick break, but at 3:10, we want everybody to come back by opening up there's a link in the chat box that will bring you to a Word document. And you can click on whichever topic you're interested in. It will drop you down to the page with that Zoom link and the name of not the name, just the name of the session that you'll be attending. And hopefully we can have some really great dialogue for the remaining 50 minutes. If you have any technical difficulties, we can, oh, I forgot to give Larry's phone number and email. So while you're talking, Jen, I'll share Larry, if you could put into the chat box what your contact information is. If anybody has any technical difficulties, they can reach out to Larry.
Thanks, Leanna. And thank you so much, everybody, for attending and spending your afternoon with us, or your morning for our friends on the out west. As we wrap up, I have a few thank yous just to share to all of our partners for your support, ASHE, Center for Ecotechnology, and U.S. Composting Council. We appreciate you being here and being a part of the day. To our panelists, we appreciate you sharing your knowledge and expertise, so thank you so much. Our roundtable moderators for shortly facilitating engaging conversations around these various topics. To Eric, our program coordinator, for being the person behind the curtain, making sure everything runs smoothly. To Larry for being behind the scenes as well as the organizer for the Zooms if there's any issues. And then finally, a special thanks to Leanna Hauser and the Marketing and Programs Committee for all the planning and effort that went into this fantastic event. So thank you so much, everyone, and hope to see you soon. Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks. Bye. See you on Zoom.
I'll leave this open for a few minutes for people to access the Zoom document with the breakout links, but we'll be closing this in about 5 minutes, and then we'll see you at 3:10.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks, y'all. Bye.